everybody. I'm Lynn Petrex, Senior Editor at Progressive Grocer, and welcome to Top Women in Grocery, a podcast focused on the trends, topics, and interests that move women forward at grocery retail. We shine a light on extraordinary women in the grocery industry who've had successful careers and interesting lives and make a positive impact on their workplace and their community. And speaking of community, today we're thrilled to talk with Susan Livingston, who is Vice President of Marketing and Purpose for PCC Community Market, who will be sharing her passion for food and successful and equitable food systems. Little background on Susan. She joined PCC in 2022, leading the merger of the marketing and social and environmental responsibility teams to form the co-op's first marketing and purpose department. Susan has more than 25 years of experience in brand marketing and is a social impact leader. She bridged from her early career in public health policy into purpose-driven brand strategy for top consumer brands, including Nike and Whole Foods Market. She earned her master's in health policy and management from Johns Hopkins University and is a proud University of Washington Husky. So welcome, Susan.
Well, hi. Thanks for having me. Happy Women's History Month.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's good timing. If we could do it every week this month, that would be great. And at PCC, you really focus on optimizing private sector resources, systems, and teams, and to deliver scaled social impact solutions through the triple bottom line business strategy. And can you tell me a little bit about what that triple bottom line is before we get really started?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, PCC is a co-op. So we operate from co-op principles, and we have what you referred to as a triple bottom line model, which means we're focused not only on profit, but on the planet and on people as well. Okay, so we balance those things together and make decisions through a filter that involves all three.
And that certainly plays right into the new role that you have there for sure.
It does. It does. Yeah.
And you've had an interesting career with social impact kind of throughout your career in different facets of the industry. So can you share some specific steps or maybe even some obstacles that you overcame to kind of get to this point and this really important job that you're holding right now?
Sure. Well,
sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the obvious thing is that just balance in life in general. I've been a single parent working for about 18 years. I've been a single parent and balancing my family with, ambitions career-wise and interest career-wise and personally. So that's the ongoing challenge. But in terms of more specific things related to my career and the actual work, I think some of the more interesting things in this world to me are anchored in cross-sector partnerships. So we're thinking about not only anchoring in the business world, but how are we sharing that approach and mindset and resources with our partners over in the nonprofit sector? And then how are we working with local government, national government, policy leaders? And then how are we also working with academic sector, whether that's public schools locally, college, university, or trade schools? And when I think about time I've spent in each one of those sectors, things happen really differently in those places. The way decisions are made, the way money is applied, other resources are applied, and it can be hard to work between them to try to build consensus and to move things forward. And that's some of the most challenging work that I've led and participated in and throughout my career, but it's also, to me, some of the most valuable because it's really not, in those cases, it's not so much about throwing resources at stuff or adding, here's a new nonprofit and here's some money to fix that. It's more about leverage and working together. And it's really hard. It's hard to get people to kind of lift their heads up out of the work they're really focused on and thinking about how we can accomplish more by working together and have stronger impact in the things that we all care about. And that same stuff translates across to work just inside companies I've worked in. So thinking about working cross-functionally, you got the folks who are super focused on labor, and others are focused on balancing shrink, and others are thinking about the top line. And it's really hard to get people to come together and to not only balance their interests with those of others, but also think about how they can work most efficiently and effectively together. So it's an ongoing challenge, but I think women are actually incredibly successful in doing that work as a rule. I think when I think about the work that goes on in microlending in countries around the world, a lot of those resources, like almost all of them, are loaned to women. And the data all shows that women are just really exceptional community builders, and they're able to mobilize people to work together. And I think some of that same thinking really applies whether you're working cross-sector or you're working inside a company and working cross-functionally.
We get stuff done, right?
Right. We get stuff done. What can we do?
That's for sure. And being in a co-op now, that really kind of naturally fosters that, or is that, in this aspect of the retail business, is it kind of built in terms of fostering, because it's part of the word, right? Co-op, or co-op,
Well,
co-op.
oh, that's a good question. I think there are some pieces that are that a co-op model is more naturally biased toward in there, and some that are more challenging. And one thing I notice all the time is we we really invite our stakeholders, whether they're internal or they're our partners or certainly our customers and members, to tell us what they think and what matters to them, and then they do. So we're constantly in this feedback cycle and feedback loop where we're really trying to really be open to input on an ongoing basis, yet we're also trying to get stuff done. And we're never going to please anybody. That's why we really anchor in our vision, mission, and values, and really line up every decision against that and that triple bottom line model. And the tension comes around balancing things.
Right. It's knowing when to lift your head up, right? As you mentioned, I love how you put that, because that's super appropriate for, we're all busy in our daily lives with our tasks, and then try to come together for this too, but seeing the bigger picture behind it is
Exactly.
so important. And let's talk a little bit about your passion for food, because that really comes through in the work you've done and the work you're doing now. It's an incredible platform for doing things. I love that. And what are some examples of that in terms of the way food provided by grocers and co-ops helps shape public policy and feed people?
Yeah, you're right. I'm very, very passionate about food as a platform, and it's part of the reason I spent so much of my career working in food is that food just isn't optional. So if we can figure out ways to mitigate the barriers to access, then it becomes this crazy enabler to people and to communities and systems of people. Um, certainly there's the foodie side of things. We love the creative side of the chefy stuff and all that. But there's also a lot of other facets to food around policy and public health and nutrition and wellness and sustainability. And it really becomes a really interesting place to play. And again, that's where that cross sector work comes in because it's not just about selling groceries, it's about what's in the product, what's not in the products, and how we get them from wherever they're made, raised, or grown onto our shelves and share them with our customers. And there's a lot to think about there in terms of what could go well and be in alignment with our value system and what could possibly challenge it. And the interesting thing is it doesn't just end. We continue to learn more. The world around us is changing. Science is progressing. Some things stay the same.
Right.
It's an interesting puzzle to continue to solve.
And consumers are so much more engaged and knowledgeable at this point too. So in so many ways, it's kind of is it reinvigorate you in some of the work that you do as well? Just seeing that there's just this enhanced interest and passion on the end of shoppers too.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are actually in the middle of some research right now. Just even in the last 3 years, you think about what has changed in the world and people's perception about how things work and where they want to apply their, spend their money and how they want to spend their money and how they want to participate in community. And we just can't take it for granted that how they felt and acted and wanted 3 years ago, even that shorter period, is consistent with what they want now. And we really saw a lot of shift around value of local food systems, local community food systems for consumers, and increased interest in sustainability. But we're still really having rigor around our decision making and not making decisions based just on feelings. I'm all about instincts and hunches, but also really anchoring into the data and understanding, really measuring what people are focused on, what their priorities are, and then making decisions based on that.
Absolutely. And your own background in health policy, and that really, how does that help you with what you're doing now? I'm sure it does in many ways, but what are some ways that you find most keen?
Well, a long time ago, I thought I wanted to work in infectious disease policy, and I thought I would, work on HIV and TB in these third world countries. And I went out to grad school in Baltimore and started studying, and I was there about, I don't know, 3 weeks when Magic Johnson came out as HIV positive. And it really changed the conversations about HIV from being about third world countries, children, in Africa, or gay men here in the States, and really being more about American superheroes. And I got really interested, as the research progressed and we learned more about HIV and how it's transmitted. I got really interested in how do we make decisions? And even though we knew more about how the virus is transmitted, we weren't changing our behavior. So I started shifting more into science literacy and kind of large scale public health work around that, and thinking, how do large groups of people make decisions? And
Oh, that's
it's
fascinating.
not, we're trying to get people to do things like add a behavior like wear a seatbelt or take away a behavior like stop smoking. And we do a whole bunch of things to try to get at their attitudes and beliefs and then hope that drives behavior. And it turns out that's marketing. So,
Right.
so it's funny how things stitch together. And,
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
something I've really followed throughout my whole career is just leaning into places that I thought were really interesting where I could see change happening
Mhm.
and trying to thread that needle through to be useful and to learn and grow at the same time.
Well, that's fascinating. And then we could have used you 3 years ago. Although you probably, although being in the food industry and watching this unfold and seeing how sustenance and nourishment played into all of this as we sought to kind of navigate all of that, and what that posed for opportunities and exposed as weaknesses, that had to be fascinating to you too.
It really was, and I really want to appreciate all the our workers in our stores. That frontline work was just an incredibly brave and courageous and sacrificial thing that they did, and very, very grateful to them. Also, really grateful to our local suppliers at a time when kind of the global supply chain ground pretty much to a halt for a bit there. Our local supply chain here at PCC in Seattle was actually really fairly robust, and that was due in large part to the number of relationships we have with local suppliers who are willing to work with us to build solutions and kind of scrap it out and build a plan together. And we're really grateful we were able to keep food on the shelves for our customers.
Absolutely, and that model kind of played through with other supply chain challenges, and now as well. And who knows what future challenges? I'm going to knock wood there very briefly for future challenges, right? Well,
Yeah.
I can't. But in PCC has developed this great reputation for community, obviously. But how can grocers and other grocers take a cue from the way you guys work with shoppers as a community that achieves good things?
Oh gosh. Well, we've been at it for 70 years, so we're really proud to be celebrating our 70th anniversary. And we have a unique position in that we are the largest community-owned food co-op in the U.S. So unlike other grocers, we do send our profits directly back to our members and into our stores and into the communities we serve. And again, that triple bottom line really anchors in the economic, social, and environmental responsibilities that we've all agreed are important. So we're very intentional in the way we support our local community food systems. Everything we do or sell traces back to our sustainable food production, processing, distribution, and consumption. And all that attaches straight into nourishing the environmental, economic, and social health of our community. Really being purpose driven is really built into how we do business. So, from being, we were one of the first retailers in our region to eliminate plastic grocery bags. And we also have some of the most stringent green building certifications for our stores. And our customers and particularly our members know that when they shop with us, they're supporting more than just their food. They're really supporting that conscious impact in the shared values.
And you have those learnings that not that other people are just getting started, but there are some that are really reshaping their ESG plans and all kinds of things. But you've been leveraging decades of experience and your inherent model to do that.
We started off as a food buying club with a bunch of families, and now we're over 110,000 households strong and growing like crazy. So there's something good happening here, and we're really proud to steward the co-op through this season.
And then how can efficient grocery systems help strengthen community food systems and improve food access and equity? Because that's so important. And especially in the tough times we're having right now with inflationary environments and SNAP benefits running out in some areas, some of the COVID related benefits running out, how that's so important. So how does that efficient system help that and lift that?
Yeah, well, again, we've been at it for 70 years and thinking through how to be useful around this kind of stuff. So, way back we founded what is now the City of Seattle's Pea Patch program that really pulled forward organic standards and protected local farmlands. We've had a lot of change and impact over the years, and we continue to try to do that. And one example was a program called Growing for Good that was emerged during the pandemic with a couple of our larger community partners, Harvest Against Hunger, and then the Seattle neighborhood farmers
The
markets.
farmers market. Yeah, I remember reading about that. I think I even wrote something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and essentially there was a bridge built between as the pandemic erupted. Somebody on our team was receiving calls from our food bank partners and our suppliers. The suppliers couldn't find places to sell their food because the restaurants were shut down and the schools were shut down, and suppliers of that size often sold to those places. And then our food bank partners couldn't get food. Food was being prioritized for retailers. Retailers were selling out, and really what we did is just stitch those two things together and give them a direct avenue for selling goods through to our food bank partners. So we have been doing that for a full year now, but we'd actually just made a pretty large investment because as the federal funding that was in place for the pandemic starts to be pulled back, we're needing to step in and steward that function and help grow it because the model is working great. So we actually just made a commitment of spending $300,000 over the next 3 years to help expand that program and replicate it and really scale it to new places.
That's fantastic. Something that was probably a very quick and rapid kind of shift ended up really having a longer
Absolutely.
impact.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about when you came on board to PCC and the new title that you have with purpose in it. And of course, that was purposefully done. But tell me a little bit about your title and your work and kind of combining that and what you've learned in maybe the close to a year that you've been there.
Gosh, it's already been a year. It's crazy.
Right? Yeah.
Almost, yeah. Well, you're correct that when I joined the co-op, we made the decision to consolidate what had been our marketing practice, which was anchored in growing the business through in-store retailing, community connection, all those things, and then our social impact function. And those functions, in my mind, have always been completely compatible. And especially in an environment where we're a co-op, where we are this triple bottom line organization and consistently committed to thinking that way, it makes sense to integrate them so that our purpose impact is completely informed by our business, and our business is completely informed by our purpose commitments. And the goal is to really use all the marketing channels to bring that storytelling to life so that our members and all of our stakeholders, our staff, our suppliers, our members can really all participate in that with us and understand how when they shop with PCC, they're really making an impact beyond just their purchase and in the economic impact directly to our co-op.
And I bet that message is getting across. Have you seen it first, when you talk to customers or when you're out in the stores? Is that something that you see how it plays out at that level?
It's starting to, yeah. We're working on it and we're taking our time. I mean, we really do believe that we're stewarding something precious after 7 decades of building and an unusual time filled with its own pitfalls and opportunities. And we're taking our
Yeah.
time to really build out our purpose practice and practicing in baby steps as we, go to market each season for our retail programming, but thinking through lots of new functions really around how we approach our partnership work, how we approach our giving, how we leverage our channels for storytelling, what kinds of commitments we're making around justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, how we approach incubation. There's so many interesting things to work on, and we're taking our time and getting it lined up properly first, and then we'll be launching the program at the end of this year in a really robust way. And our goal is to not just do a thing and talk about it, but it's really to involve our stakeholders in it and have them help us shape it. And we're expecting to hopefully do a bunch of good stuff, but also to learn as we go and continue to improve the program.
Well, that's the way we keep on learning. And authenticity is so important for the program as well as for the consumers because they can tell when something's not authentic or it's just words. It's not words. This is authentic. This is what we're doing, how we're doing, and here are the results. Because that
Yeah.
absolutely has to be built into it. And one of the other things I love that about your background is that I believe you talk about your career as a jungle gym, not a ladder. And I super loved that and honed in on that. So Susan, tell me a little bit of what do you mean by that, and what can we all learn from that?
Well, I'm borrowing that from a friend who shared it with me a few years ago, and I love it, and I share that with people I work with all the time. And just to be super transparent, I've never been somebody who's had making a beeline with my career to climb, and wanting to be CEO and wanting to lead at the very, very top of all the things. I'm a lot more interested in thinking about transferable skills and transferable knowledge and abilities, and really what's interesting to me. I mean, life is short. I don't want to spend my life doing something that's not interesting and from my perspective useful and that can make the best use of whatever gifts I bring to the table. So I don't always focus on what is the next role, how am I going to be promoted, how can I grab my piece of the pie and shine super brightly. I'm a lot more interested in kind of working around that jungle gym and thinking about, okay, I've gained this piece of experience, I've learned these things, I have these relationships, and how can I put those to work in a way that's really useful for a next chunk of experience where I can not only contribute but also learn and grow as I go. And I'm fairly I've had a lot of experience over the years. I'm not starting out in my career, and I'm still learning like crazy. And I think that's one of the gifts of working in marketing purposes. There's so much changing around us, and it's not a static thing. So there's always stuff to learn and new places to apply what I do know and can do, and new people to partner with that I can learn from and support as well. So I'm all for the people that want to be CEOs. I think they're fantastic, and I can hopefully be a good partner to them. But uh, my perspective, my approach has been to think about kind of moving around into the things that are more interesting to me, piece by piece.
Okay, and that's holistic, and that's so personal for people, and that's the kind of beauty of it, is you can find those pieces that mean things to you and move around that kind of, that kind of playground as it might be. And sometimes it's a merry-go-round. At
Yeah,
least
yeah, yeah,
past
it
couple of
sure
years,
is.
maybe.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of back to what we talked about earlier, thinking through that cross sector work. And that's advice I give to a lot of people who are looking to just, they're trying to, how can I get ahead in my career and how can I think forward? How can I find my next opportunity? And sometimes you do your best work at work, and sometimes we do our best work in our personal lives and do a good job at work. So there are ways to get experiences, not always in your core job, but also to stretch and be volunteer places, be on a board at something, take on a side hustle that makes sense. It doesn't conflict with your job in any way, but you can get pieces of experience in lots of ways. It doesn't have to be your core job. And sometimes it is. Sometimes you're just head down, cranking, doing your thing. And that's where it happens. But I have a lot of young people in my life. I have young adult children and spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff with them, and really, really excited about what the younger generations are bringing, and the sort of emerging professionals and emerging creators and makers and leaders. And I'm really inspired and learning a lot from them.
That is so true. I have kids in there who are kind of that young adult age too, and they are so impressive to me because they see it that way, and they see different learnings in different parts of their lives, and it's so less linear. And I'm fascinated to see where some of them are going to end up. But it's an interesting perspective and good advice to give a young woman that might be starting out in this industry as
Yeah,
well.
and I think we're seeing so many interesting things emerging in the sustainability space and the social impact space. Really, lots of new models coming, and a lot of data showing that that emerging consumer is really willing to sacrifice um, to make a difference through their purchases. And I'll say, even in my own household, I had a kiddo home, and I had accidentally ordered a subscription repeat to a laundry detergent. And I had too much, and I tried to give it to them to take with them,
Mhm.
and they wouldn't take it because it wasn't clean.
Okay.
And
All
I was
right.
like, you know what?
All
I don't know
right.
how you can afford to do your laundry, but good for you.
Yeah, I
So
get busted once in a while throwing away produce. So yeah,
yeah,
So,
they're willing to put their resources and behavior, against their values, and to sacrifice for it a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an exciting time to be in the industry and move things forward. And sustainability too is so much more broadly defined than it was in the past. And that's the beauty of it, is you're building out all these systems because there's so many different
Mhm.
components to it. Do you think that's true going forward, that maybe that umbrella will widen a little bit more too?
I do. At the co-op, we're thinking a lot about three core priorities. One is community food systems, which we've talked a little bit about here. The other two are sustainable sourcing and responsible sourcing and sustainable operations. So those are the three core areas that we're focusing in on, and there's lots of work within that. And when we're thinking about sustainability, we're certainly thinking about environmental sustainability, but we're also thinking about organizational sustainability and how are we setting up our co-op and our member community and participating in other parts of our community, in a way that is sustainable and set up for long range health, not just short term impact, but creating systems that are nimble and can be responsive to things, as opposed to it is what it is and it may die soon. At some point it's not useful, it'll be obsolete. We're really looking for resilience in systems, and we're learning that from the young leaders coming up.
Oh, for sure. And we just talked about those young leaders, so they're going to be the ones that are, and at some level, in some way, maybe not too far off, and then maybe even now it's an expectation, versus a promise or an idea, because I think that there will become an expectation that that's how you do business in
Absolutely.
a sustainable way.
And that kind of goes to that whole concept of diversity and inclusion. And I continue to learn every day about those practices, and really thinking a lot about diversity as an outcome of inclusion. And so we're really focused on that at PCC, is in thinking about how are we very intentional with being inclusive, and what does that look like when we're thinking about sourcing, and when we're thinking about giving, and we're thinking about all the different pieces of it. We're in the middle of conversations about how do we participate in different, we call them movements and moments, whether they're holiday, like, Women's History Month, Black History Month. How do we participate in all of these things in ways that reflect our values and are not that are healthy and not tokenizing and not performative. But it's complex, and we're continuing to learn. But that inclusion piece is really important, and we believe that by being inclusive and learning, improving, constantly improving how we do that, that diversity that will come as a result of that will make us stronger and more resilient. So it's a long range commitment.
And it makes everybody feel good. I mean, at the end of the day, when we feed ourselves and nourish ourselves, we want to feel good, and that really helps with that and really lifts that. Doing good, feeling good, and it's just a better environment for everybody.
Well, yeah, you think about it, if we can, mitigate those barriers to access for food, if we can solve through food insecurity and make sure that all people have access to healthy, nutritious food, then it becomes an equity strategy, right? Because each person's important. It's not about who believes in what and what's most important. It's really about every person is important. And if they're nourished, they will thrive and they will contribute to the world in the way that they want to and are meant to. And it becomes an inclusion strategy. So there we go. All about the platform of food.
I love it. I love it. And I think we'll leave it there for today. So I think you're going to have a busy year, Susan. It sounds like you really are.
We're bored over here.
We love it. We love hearing about what our top women are doing. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you for what you do. It's really terrific to bring forward leaders in the industry and particularly women. So thank you.
Sure, and I have to get out there. I haven't been out to the West Coast in a while, so that's going to be on one of my things to do this year. I'd love to.
Well, we'd love to have you. Seattle's a really wonderful city, and the Pacific Northwest is gorgeous.
Yeah, I can't wait to go. So for more information about the Top Women in Grocery podcast, please visit progressivegrocer.com/podcast. You can also subscribe to this series wherever you typically listen to podcasts, including Apple, Google, and Spotify. And if you have an idea for a twig topic, we want to hear from you. So you can go ahead and email me at lptrack@ensembleiq.com. So see you again next time. Thank you, Susan, for joining us.
Thanks again.
Have a great day, everybody.